And if you think it feels like work, I'm willing to put the work in. Yes, I'm willing to put the work in. And if you need a reminder, I'm willing to remind you that I'm willing to put the work in. I'm willing to put the work in. That I'm willing to put the work in. I'm willing to put the work in.
Right. Here we go. Hey, everyone. Another episode of If You Will podcast. I'm reaching far. I actually woke him up out of his bed, out of his beautiful slumber, because I was just so excited, and it was my mistake. I'm sorry, Lucas, because I was like, 2 o'clock, can't wait, and then I realized it was 3 o'clock, and like early your time. So I have Pickle Darling, Lucas, here with us from his moniker, his band, his music, coming all the way in from Christchurch, New Zealand. Lucas, you're the first New Zealander.
New Zealander.
New Zealander, yeah, that makes sense.
I thought that's New Zealander. That's good.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So first time that we've reached into your country to discover some of the music, and been a long time listener. I mean, Pickle Darling makes these beautiful indie pop gems, very DIY, but great collaborators you work with. And, you know, my first question, actually, I discovered this by listening back to that you have a relationship with Bedbug, with Dylan from Bedbug.
Yeah.
Cool. How did that come to be, if you don't mind me asking?
Sort of. I don't know if I'd call it a relationship. I guess so. I mean, I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was. So I think when I was kind of first, before I was releasing music, I was a big fan of, like, I would just go through Bandcamp and discover a lot of, like, you know, lo-fi stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of the artists that I was like a big fan of also, you know, I eventually kind of became friends with them just through the internet.
Right.
Because I was following the label Z Tapes. Well, it's actually meant to be pronounced Z Tapes, but
right.
if it sounds wrong. Yeah, and Bedbug was one of them, and I was such a big fan of their first album.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was kind of one of those albums that's like, I mean, I love all their albums, particularly the second album. The second album's amazing.
Yep.
But yeah, I feel like it's cool when you hear something that is like, it feels like, oh, okay, this is how I can participate in this as well. It's like, it kind of gives you permission to like, just the way it's recorded, how like it's so scrappy, but also there's so much songcraft in there, and it's not like you couldn't hear lots of expensive gear or an expensive studio, but it's also just as amazing sounding as like an Animal Collective album, you know? It's just
for sure. I mean,
so,
I feel a lineage between, you know, Dylan and what you're doing as well. Like there's this commonality or a tipping of the cap to one another in your song crafting. I
definitely see myself as still like they're kind of still one of those artists that I'm like I'm still kind of chasing what they do a little bit. Like
but you've been doing this for a while now, right? I guess like this is you had Laundromat that came out in 2023, but you have four other full records, really. I mean, under your belt. Maybe before we dive into the records, I'd love to kind of ask you about how you came into starting to songwrite, and you know, where you picked up your first instrument, and like how did it all kind of start clicking for you, where music had to be a part of your daily functionings in this world of ours?
I think it was I guess in primary school I was like, it's kind of embarrassing. I was playing ukulele a lot in primary school when I was way too old to be like getting rid into the ukulele, and I'd be playing like, you know, learning like Smells Like Teen Spirit and like Stairway to Heaven and Sweet Child of Mine on the ukulele. I was like, yeah, I want to be like a. And then eventually I got into guitar,
Right.
and still I guess tried to play the same songs. But I think eventually I got to the point where I was like, I don't know. You kind of just get bored of just trying to learn songs, or you just learn the parts of songs that you like, and you're just more interested in writing your own songs. So there's not many songs that I could actually play right through.
Yeah.
If I went on stage and people were like requesting like, I don't know, Wonderwall, I probably couldn't play it. Now that I think about it, but I was like,
Maybe
I
the
could
first
write
few
my own
seconds,
songs,
and then like, yeah, go something like that.
yeah,
Yeah. Totally.
But yeah, I think, and even when I was like studying music, because I went to music school. It's called the jazz school, but I didn't study jazz. And 3 years of that, and it was like I felt so out of place. I mean, I have fond experiences there because, like, to be honest, the tutors were all pretty great, and all the people were great. But I was just like, oh, I'm clearly like maybe kind of the wrong person. Like, I don't know. I'm just so like shit at my instrument. And I was also never that interested in like getting good at my instrument.
Right.
I just wanted to write songs and just like make my own like lo-fi shit.
Yeah. In
and then
school,
I studied.
was it a songwriting course that I think I read that, or I heard maybe on another podcast.
I did. So there was the jazz course, and then there's the pop course, and then that was the songwriting course.
Okay.
Which was like so fucking garbage. It would be like you'd have a whole class, and then I mean, the tutor is a super nice guy. I don't want to. I'm not gonna. Oh, I shouldn't rip people out on this, this podcast.
No,
He's never gonna hear this. He's a super nice guy, but he's just seemed real out of it.
Right.
And was like, we'd have a whole class. He'd be like, "Oh, so if you end a line with moon, you can, have a word that rhymes with moon at the end of the next line. What are some words that rhyme with moon? Sure, I don't know. It was like, this isn't how I write songs.
So I wanted to see though, did that inform your songwriting? It seems like it. Like, were you already underway of like in the processes of writing your own songs when you started attending that pop section of?
Definitely. School? I was like, honestly, with that part of it, I don't know. I just thought you can't really teach a lot of that stuff. Yeah. You have to just like find your own taste.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to learn is always by like just diving deep into music and being a music fan and listening to lots of music and just figuring out why you like the things you like. Right. And then almost just trying to replicate that for a bit until you figure out how to just, really do it for yourself. Yeah. And there's ways people can maybe help you and guide you, but I don't know, you really just have to find your own taste and just like understand why you like the music you like.
Right.
I think that's just, I don't know, just being a music fan is always, I think, so much more important than like a formal education.
Right.
And
did you have an idea, the aesthetic that you wanted to create with Pickle Darling? Like, was it, or did you stumble upon it, or did you like kind of create a persona or how you wanted the songs to?
I think I noticed. I always liked. I don't know how to describe it. I always liked music that I thought was like pretty. That was always a thing when I was young. I was like, never. I don't know. I was never into like a lot of the cool bands. I was never into like Sonic Youth or anything. Right. I like always preferred like. I don't know. I love all that like early 2000s like soft rock, like like Travis and Coldplay and stuff. Just like very melodic and I was super into the Beatles growing up and like Sparkle Horse and Sufjan Stevens and Joanna Newsom, and that sort of like it's all about like intricate melodies and lots of details. That's just kind of like ear candy. That was always what what I was into, and I was never that into like electric guitars or noise or I don't know. So I think that was always something that I was always, I don't know, that always kind of informed my music. And I think in terms of like my sound, that kind of just came out of like limitations. I was always a big fan of like, okay, like just kind of making use of what I have and seeing how good I can make that, as opposed to just trying to buy more expensive gear or waiting to like have access to a studio. And it's also when you have access to a studio or something, it's like you're not in full control of it. You can't really, it's hard to make your own. It's hard to make everything sound like you. So that was always, I don't know. So I still just use one mic and I just use Logic Pro to record everything.
And you've always had a home studio, I imagine. Like, is that where you record most of your songs at home, or the demos come out at home and then you bring them to the studio?
No, I never use a studio. I think for me a studio would be such a struggle because it's so much about like the specific details that when I'm recording, I know instantly if I've made a mistake or have to redo something, and I can just quickly hit the space bar, press enter, start again. I don't have to like communicate to someone else. Or if I have an idea, I can just record it instantly. And sit in my room for like 7 hours and not feel like I'm wasting someone's time.
Interesting. And did your records, like, between, like, again, I was just reading up on some of the reviews and stuff that had been put out there, and it was saying that Cosmonaut, your record that you put out in 2021, was much more, you wanted that more meticulous, and then it shifted with this latest record to being much more, I think you said, a quote from you was, let's have more beautiful nothing happening within it. And you were wanting it to be more authentic and less, knob turning. Is that it?
I think
is that a difference that you looked at when you were the difference between those two records that you put out?
Yeah, I think with Cosmonaut, I was really thinking a lot about albums that feel like albums, like I don't know, like like Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, or like a Microphones album where it's like it's not necessarily about the individual songs, but there's more space for like long kind of passages that go somewhere, or I don't know, that album still feels like a really cohesive kind of journey. Whereas with Laundromat, it was a lot about like more about my daily practice as like what music is to me, and it was about like every day, or as much as I could, just trying to write songs for myself, not necessarily about anything, but it's just almost like a meditation for myself. And I tried to keep everything on Laundromat like as almost like the first instincts, if that makes sense, where I wanted everything to feel as demo-y as possible, where it's like, okay, it's just chords, melody, not much else. There's no crazy production. It's just like almost the bare minimum, and just kind of the spark of an idea, and trying to not stamp that out. Right. So that's why the songs are probably, the songs are a lot shorter, and they're, I think, more like, I was thinking a lot about like writing really efficient kind of economic songs. So no wasted time. Right. No wasted notes, no wasted words.
And did that take longer to record? Like the one where, the first one that you were playing around with, Cosmonaut, much more, and then as you were saying, Laundromat was much more of a, letting happen what happens. Which one did you find you related to more, and has that informed perhaps your future songs and records that you're probably working on now, or did it change the way you process songs and how you approach writing them?
I think there's always something I kind of pick up on the way, but each album I feel like is always like a reaction to the last album, like everything I found frustrating about the last album.
Right.
So then I've just kind of finished a new album, and it's almost the opposite of Laundromat, where I was like tired of songs.
Right.
I was like, I hate the idea of writing songs now. I just want to like actually make an album that's almost like about recording and like what I can do with recording. I don't know. So there's lots of like the songs are more kind of assembled from like lots of bits of recording, and the guitar parts are all like cut up and assembled. And I don't know. I really wanted to make an album that felt like it was about, I don't know, just about the act of recording and production um and just
yeah.
Yeah, so
because you
that's the
studied
next
that
one.
too, eh? I mean, I think you took a course or like.
Yeah, so I did 1 year of audio engineering
Right.
after jazz school.
Right.
And I had a kind of similar approach to it. Like, I still wouldn't know how to operate a studio, but I went into that course just being like, I want to get what I need to get to make my own music, and then I'm going to drop out. That was almost always my approach from the start. And that was one of the tutors. He was awesome because it was so refreshing to have a tutor be like, okay, like I can tell you how I would do things or my personal approach to recording or production, but it's a creative thing. So I can't actually tell you what's right or wrong. You have to like, if you like it, that's right. Which is like crazy to hear a tutor tell you that, you know?
Yeah.
Because that was always how he would critique your work. It was always like, I can only tell you what my personal taste is, but I'm not going to tell you that this is the wrong way to do it. Which I feel like I needed to hear, you know.
Yeah. Kind of putting a mirror up and saying, "Well, you tell me." Like,
yeah,
I think it sounds like it pushes that reflection even further of yourself, and through that process, like, what were the greatest tips and tricks or lessons that you brought out from and brought into your music that were really valuable to you once you had left, you'd finished the course?
I think it's a lot about like, for me, in terms of practical things about production. I think so much of like the problems that you face in production and mixing are actually songwriting and arrangement issues, if that makes sense. So like often what happens is that like, I don't know, maybe people go into the studio and record a whole bunch of stuff and it's like, oh, how do I get this sounding good? So a lot of it's just a songwriting issue where it's like you have to, because I record and produce my own stuff, whenever I'm writing or arranging a song, I'm writing it with the production in mind. Like I'm writing parts being like, this is going to be in the right speaker. This is going to be like mixed really low in the left. So I don't have things kind of just like filling up the same space or tripping over themselves. Like every part is kind of made with the final recording in mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just cutting lots of stuff out and making space while you're arranging a song. Like,
right.
I feel like was something
It seems tricky though to like, nobody's ever explained it like that. Like, cause I often ask like for DIY artists, like you have two hats you're wearing, right? You have your artist hat and then you have the whole production hat that you're wearing as well. And how do you fuse those? But nobody's ever talked about how they do them simultaneously, like you were describing, which I find really fascinating.
Yeah, and I think if you have an okay ear and you know what you like, you don't really need fancy gear at all.
Right.
There are great sounding albums made with fancy gear, but also great sounding albums that are made without fancy gear because they know their gear and they know how to use it and how to make something. I don't know, like if it's a shitty microphone, like they know how it sounds, how it records well, like how to mix it in a way that fits, that makes a cohesive kind of sound world, I guess.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like kind of getting to know your gear and what it does, and then what you need to do to get the sound out of it that you're looking for.
Yeah, or if you have like if you don't have fancy gear, like you can still make something that sounds energetic. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's often the best way to like approach it. Like the Guided by Voices albums sound
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Right.
And they because they sound so like they sound like someone's just found them at the bottom of I don't know, like buried underground and it's just like exploding with energy.
Yeah.
Um,
Totally.
you
Totally.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. And Lucas, what were the tipping points in your musical journey so far? Like, what were some moments in time where you felt like you went up a next step or went to the next level with your music? What were some of those events or occurrences that kind of excited you and said, okay, this is not, I'm not flatlining. I'm actually, I see the steps. I see how it's progressing.
I think hmm. I guess an early one would be when the Beths took me on tour
Mm-hmm.
because that was kind of my first tour, my first real tour. Um, and I was the opening band for their like South Island shows. So we did 4 shows with them, and the second show we'd ever really played as a band together was like in a huge theater with like 800 people. I was like so nervous.
Yeah, I can
Um,
imagine.
it was very scary,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I think because when I first started Pickle Darling, I never had the intention of playing live. It just became a thing because people keep asking me, like, "Oh, you should play a show, or you should open for us." And it's like, I guess I should assemble a band.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and eventually,
How did the best
yeah,
find you? Like, how was it through or Z tapes at the time, or was it?
me, I'm not sure, but I think because New Zealand is so small, like if you're making music and you're, I don't know, making a bit of a name for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
the Beths eventually find you. I think also because they're such music fans and they're such a proactive band and helping out
Yeah,
other
it's true.
like there's such a champion of New
Yeah,
Zealand bands
yeah,
and they will always reach out and encourage you and like I don't know, they're really cool. They really help people out in like really practical ways as well.
that's so cool.
Um
That's so cool.
like they're always yeah.
Mm.
So there's that and there's also I mean, I guess the biggest one is probably signing to Father Daughter
Right.
Records,
Yeah.
which was like
Great label.
I don't know. That's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. It's always kind of like in the back of your mind a bit of a dream to sign to like
Yeah. Yeah.
an international label.
Yeah.
Um,
And was that relationship right from the get go a positive one for you? And like, is
yeah,
that a kind
definitely.
of label that respects your artistic freedom and like they don't put too many parameters in your way?
Yeah, no, they put like no parameters
Mm.
in a way, and um, yeah, I feel like because it's it's basically 2 people,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, they're just very hardworking, and they're just like nice people, and we've just become friends. So now like I want to do well for them, if that
Right.
makes sense, because I can see
Yeah.
how hard they've worked for me, and I'm like feel bad that I'm costing them so much money. I'm like, okay, I want to try and make this money
Yeah, for sure.
back for you.
Well, I'm
Just
sure in
like
turn you definitely help, their label out as well.
we'll see.
To
I
be
hope so.
determined.
Yeah,
Is Laundromat your first on
yeah.
okay, on Father Daughter
Which is
Records?
it's weird because that was the album that I made with like no audience. That was like Laundromat I made as like this is my giving up album. This is
Mm,
my album that I'm like, okay, I don't care about climbing the music career ladder.
mm,
I just need to figure out what music is to me
mm-hmm.
and like why I make music just for myself. And the aim, I guess I was just gonna like kind of I don't know, just dump it on the internet or something or make my own records or I'm always going to make records for my whole life, whether there's a label
Right,
involved or not.
right,
But
right. It's happy. I
and
mean, it's nice to have the support though.
yeah, so I pretty much finished the album when they reached out to me,
Mm,
and
right on.
yeah,
Good for you, man. Good for you. And I'm curious about that first series of shows that you did. Like, what was your setup? Because, I mean, DIY artists, I mean, you do everything, right? And then to translate that to a group of people sitting in or standing in front of you is quite, sometimes it can be quite challenging. Well, how did you translate the record stuff to a live performance?
It's hard, but it's very fun. But just a lot of problem solving and a lot of like, because there's no set default sounds we can fall back on, because it's not like a rock band where there's bass, electric guitar, drums.
Right.
It's like, okay, the first iteration of the live band, there were 5 people, no drums. It was like drum machine, me on acoustic guitar, someone else also on acoustic guitar. Oh, there was someone on bass and someone on like glockenspiel and yeah. And then the second version, it was like yeah, well, so it's basically when there's a full band, it's just drum machine, keyboards, guitar. Yeah, just like no bass.
Okay.
No bass for electric guitars. So sound people, other than the fact that I sing really quietly, sound guys at shows love us because there's no drums and amps on stage.
Right.
Everything is
They
DI.
can control easily what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
And did playing live inform your music or change it a little bit? Like, did you start thinking about, if I was playing this live, you know, like before you were saying when I'm first creating a song, I think of the two, like the production side and what I'm writing and the artistic side. Did the live stuff, playing live, start to seep in there as well as you continue to write songs?
Not really, to be honest, because I feel like when I play live, it's not. I don't know. For a long time, it always felt like a compromise, if that makes sense. Whereas, I think when I started, I never felt like a real musician for a long time because I hadn't grown up playing gigs, and I didn't feel like I could get up on stage with a guitar and a mic and just put on a show by myself. So I think over the last couple of years, that was something that I really worked on. I was like, okay, I want to, and I actually did like a couple open mic nights, and that was just like harrowing. Where I was like, okay, I want to see if I can just like get on stage with just an acoustic guitar and a mic and my songs and like put on a show.
How did you feel those experiences went? Yeah, weird.
I think the open mic night went pretty terrible. Because right after me and right before me there were these like hard out like fusion jazz rock bands that were all like super musician-y. It was a crazy night. And there's like these like child prodigies. There was like I think right after me it was like it looked like they're all like 12 and they're all just like shredding. I was like, oh god. What am I?
Nice to
and all their
insert
parents
you in
were
the
there
middle of
filming
that,
them. Yeah, it was really insane. Like you couldn't have made me look worse.
But it didn't deter you, like
no. So I've since then when I was opening for people, and also because it's so expensive to take a band, you know, where when you're like playing opening slots and stuff. I've taken a band when we opened for like we opened for Lucid Dacus, and we opened for what's we opened for? Oh, you opened for Matchbox 20. I was like, okay, I'll take a band for those. I played an arena with Matchbox 20. No sound check. And it was insane. But I don't know. Anyway, with playing solo, I think that's where I've kind of found my my thing as a live performer, because I was like, oh man, I actually really love playing guitar, and I like kind of grew to love singing and just actually like feeling the audience listening. I love also like just listening to the audience as well and trying to, I don't know, I just love the kind of like almost challenge of just trying to engage an audience and having that conversation with them, and bringing, I don't know, making everyone be quiet and listen really closely.
Yeah.
I kind of grew to love that, and I love those sorts of shows, like really quiet shows.
Yeah.
So yeah, because on this tour,
fitting so nicely with that kind of environment. And
yeah, and it kind of makes me feel more like a songwriter.
yeah,
I was like, oh yeah, I actually like.
yeah,
And then I feel like that's actually what's informed my music now. Is like, is because now I'm working on I've been writing a whole bunch of songs over the last few months that I'm like, oh, these are songs that I'm just writing for voice and guitar.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't know. I love, yeah, just presenting the song itself.
Yeah. And are you finding that you're feeling more confident with your delivery and where you're putting your vocals in the songs?
I think so. Do you mean in terms of recording or playing live?
In live performances, because you were saying that when you first started, you were very quiet in how you delivered. Has that changed a little bit? The more
I think I still sing. I sing more confidently, but I still sing very quietly. But because I'm playing guitar, it's like I can just bring everything down.
Right.
I can sing quietly, and I can then play quieter.
Yeah.
Like I can be more dynamic and be quieter with intention. Like there's some songs where I'll like whisper a bit of it, and just hearing, I don't know, just being in a room where there's like 120 people and everyone's just being really quiet because they're trying to hear it is like a really cool.
Yeah, that's wicked.
I don't know. It's just a really cool energy in the room that I don't know.
And you're kind of like the puppeteer, kind of like,
yeah,
like you have a sense when you have them, like when they're,
I think so,
they're zoned into what you're singing, playing.
Whereas when you're playing with a full band, it's hard. I feel like I'm thinking so much about what's going on that it's hard to really be conscious of the energy in the room.
Right.
When you're playing solo, I feel like you're super conscious of it. Because I've played shows where I'm opening or playing an event or something, and it's like everyone's just chatting the whole way, and I'm like, well, okay, I'm just gonna play the songs, and you're like, I have no one.
That's annoying, man.
Yeah,
because there is an intimacy there, right? That you're trying to present, and then you got a bunch of jackasses getting the bar or whatever. You know, it's just like, dudes, come on, respect. So, listeners, if you're at a show, listen to the music and talk.
Yeah, and you'll have
during intermission.
You'll have a better night.
That's right. Exactly. I wanted to just ask too, Lucas, about like. I really enjoyed the Milkman of Human Kindness, the cover you did of Billy Bragg.
Oh yeah.
How did you decide upon covering that song?
I mean, I've always liked that song. That's one of the first Billy Bragg album is one of my all-time favorite albums, just because of how it sounds. It's just guitar and vocals. 7 songs. It's so short. The album is like 13 minutes or something.
Yeah, something like that.
It's so short. Tiny. And every song is just a banger.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, that's like just the perfect album. Like I would love to make an album that's just like 7 bangers.
And that like so many people would cover too. I mean, you know, like you're so right in saying that. And I think every one of those has been covered like 20, 100, you know, like many, many times.
And I saw him live. That's when I got that tea towel.
Yeah.
In the back. It's not a poster, it's actually a tea towel.
Okay. Talking to the tax man about poetry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw him live, I think it might have been last year. And he performed for about 2 hours, just himself and a guitar. And that I thought that was so, I don't know, that was just so inspiring. I was like, oh, you can do it. You can sell out a whole theater, you know? Like 1,500 people
on stage, Lucas. Like he's such a showman. Like you can tell that he's been doing this since he was a teenager. Once he has the crowd and they come to, you know, they listen, you know, because he has like all this history and records that he just seems like he's in your living room, you know, let's gather around the campfire, you know, just saying, and I'll tell you some stories and we'll talk about politics a bit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, so you're just glued to him the whole time. And it's hard to do, right? I mean, I think his experience and consistency reveals that quite a lot.
Yeah. So I think when I like think about the future, for me, I'm like, okay, what is like myself at my peak? I don't know, what would my live show look like? And I'm like, oh yeah, it would probably look. I'm like, what would a quiet version of Billy Bragg be in a theater? You know, like, yeah, I don't know.
I think it would be.
This is cool.
Pickle Darling.
It would be.
It would be. Well, Lucas, this has been a really fine treat. Thanks so much for accepting this invite. And
oh no, thanks for chatting. I listened to this podcast, so
yeah. Oh, cool. Well, I mean, it's been a pleasure. Give us a little idea, like what's coming down the pipe that you can talk about and that we could look forward to from Pickle Darling.
So I have an album that's probably going to come out next year. It's just being mixed at the moment. And then what else? I'm doing the soundtrack for a game called Shelf Life, which is being developed at the moment.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm just writing lots of songs, and I don't really have big goals. I don't know. I just want to write lots of songs, record lots of songs.
Awesome. That's a fine goal for me, I'll tell you. I'm excited that you have something in the works for 2025. I think that you should come back on and we can talk about it and compare it to the other ones and how the evolution has happened. And if you were to give us a little sneak peek of what's coming in 2025, what would you most closely relate it to of what you've done already?
I think it's because each album is like a reaction against the last one. It's more, the songs are longer, they're more kind of chopped up and maybe a bit less songy. So it feels closer to Cosmonaut, I think.
Cool.
Maybe, but yeah, I don't know. It's just more, I don't know. For me, it's quite experimental, but for everyone else, it's probably not. It's probably not very experimental. But for me, it just feels like a change. I really kind of challenged myself, and I spent months and months on every song. Like, there's nothing that, I don't know. It was kind of a struggle to make, to be honest.
Okay.
But because I just kind of set myself these kind of challenges to like, almost
good. Keep up the good work, and I mean, keep writing. We love your stuff, and I'm speaking for more than just me. I've tons of friends that I've introduced you to them, and they become avid listeners. So,
oh, amazing! Thank you.
You're doing something really special, and I love the aesthetic of it. I love the sound of it. I love your style. So it seems to all be clicking here, Lucas. So please carry on, and we as listeners will follow along on the journey.
Thanks so much.
Well,
and
pleasure.
You keep doing your thing. It's a great podcast.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You're a great interviewer.
I like that a lot. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. And you have yourself a good day. I guess you're off to work soon.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, enjoy, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Have a good day.
Lately, I've been thinking a little too loud. I recollect